CBS News reporting in the last few moments, police in Washington, D.C. responding to the scene of a shooting a few blocks from the White House, 17th and I Street Northwest. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said 2 members of the National Guard were shot. Noem asked for prayers for the guardsmen, but did not share any information about their status. She said the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, was working with local law enforcement to gather more information. Metro Police Department, the local police department there, posted a critical incident alert at 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time. That would have been about 1:42 our time, so, about 20, 25 minutes ago, saying, please avoid the area, updates to come. Video from the scene showed 2 men in uniform being treated. So that's all we know at the time. Of course, the National Guard is in D.C. At the president's behest. The president, by the way, not in D.C. right now. I think he's down in Florida. So, there's no impact to the White House, but this is a few blocks away, and it does involve the National Guardsmen who are there to help secure and make D.C. a safer place at the president's behest with, by the way, the support of now retiring Mayor Muriel Bowser. So that we'll try to stay on top of that story and keep you up to date on everything that we know. But to recap very quickly, about 25 minutes or so ago, there was an incident at 17th and I, Northwest in D.C., just a few blocks away from the White House. 2 National Guardsmen apparently are involved in some kind of shooting incident, and 2 National Guardsmen apparently being treated now for their injuries. This, according to the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, speaking to CBS News and others. I'm looking now on the Fox News channel, and they have what appears to be a drone shot. You can see that this is very close to the White House. It is just north of the White House. And again, pictures now just coming up the technology that TV stations have these days is really amazing. A live shot can basically put up off a cell phone. And they're walking toward the area in Northwest D.C., 17th and I. And there are a lot of police cars, a lot of yellow tape. An investigation underway, and we don't know anything more about it except that apparently 2 National Guardsmen who were there to secure the city and make it safe have been involved in some kind of shooting. It seems a shooting incident, and are undergoing treatment for their injuries. And that's really about all we know right now. We'll come back to it as more information is made available. I want to talk a little bit about the tunneling machine. Elon Musk's and his tunneling machine, the Boring Company. They want to build a tunnel between the airport and downtown, but now there's talk about a lot more. Here's the big news. According to Fox 17 reporter Johnny Manfrey, the doggone boring machine, the one that actually digs the tunnel, has arrived in Nashville.
Boring machine showed up, oversized load. The truck driver says it came all the way from Austin, which makes sense with the Boring Company and Elon having a lot of things based over there. We are here on Rosa Parks, just below the state capitol up there. Now, this boring machine, it's different than the one they used in Vegas for the Vegas loop because of the hard rock underneath the surface here. It's a lot different. We were literally reporting on a different story involving the Music City Loop this morning. Head to fox17.com, search Tesla Tunnel, Boring Company, Music City Loop, whatever you think. Let us know what you think in the comments as well. I'm Johnny Maffey. Thanks for watching.
There you go, from Fox 17. Thank you for that. So the boring machine has arrived, and the question is, what are they going to do? Now, the other start of this story that is sort of interesting is that we are hearing now from the Boring Company and Elon Musk that they want to maybe do some bigger things. One of the things that's been talked about is expanding this tunnel that will run from the airport to downtown to include a stop at the new stadium. The governor spoke about this yesterday. The governor is all about this. There's also talk, this is pretty amazing stuff, there's talk about building a tunnel all the way between Nashville and Knoxville. Nashville and Knoxville, and according to the folks at the Boring Company, they say that they would use pods and they would travel 600 miles an hour, and that you could do the trip to Knoxville in just a few minutes. Now, that would be remarkable. Here's what I would say about it, and that is that we don't know much about what kind of capability they truly have in this granite. The machine got here. The machine is designed to burrow into the granite, but they haven't really started digging yet, and it's a lot of rock. The other thing that I would say is many times when you hear Elon Musk or Elon's companies talk about things, it's aspirational. In other words, this is what we would like to do. We're just not really sure whether we can do it. They have a pretty good reputation of figuring things out. Maybe they'll be able to figure it out, but this is sort of what they're saying. In concept, it could get you there to Knoxville pretty quickly. You know, you go out to a University of Tennessee game, you could leave here half an hour before the thing started and be there. I mean, that would be remarkable, wouldn't it? So we'll see what happens there in that regard. But one way or the other, the boring machine is here, and they are beginning to do the digging. I think the first test will be this tunnel that runs between the airport and downtown has to go through some pretty serious rock. They don't seem to think it's going to be a problem. They have reconfigured the machine to handle that harder material that they'll be experiencing, stuff they didn't have to experience, stuff they never ran into. The bad news is it'll be hard to cut through. The good news is once you cut through it, you have a very solid tunnel. It's going to be there for a while. So, I mean, unbelievable stuff. And again, the new development is that machine has arrived and will now start digging between the airport and downtown, down near the state capitol where they have the other end. So I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. I know that the city of Nashville, the city fathers and the council, they have some real concerns about this, and they're a little miffed that they haven't been just had any conversations with about this. They've sort of been imposed upon them by the state. The state has the right-of-ways, and the state has a place near the Capitol where they can end the tunnel. And so, the question is, will the city be on board? But it seems to me like it'd be a pretty big deal. If you could have a tunnel that would take traffic from the airport to downtown, and you don't have to deal with that traffic, everybody wins. The people who are coming to town, they win. The people who get less traffic on I-40 near the airport, they win. We all win if it can work. The question is, can it work? So now we'll have to wait and see. It's 15 minutes now past the hour of 2 o'clock, and I want to just once again recap this breaking news story out of the nation's capital. And I'm trying to get more information on it, but I mean, it literally has just happened so quickly that we don't have a lot of information on it. But 2 National Guardsmen who were there to town to be involved in in making the town safe for crime, apparently have been shot about a block north of the White House. Let's see, Here's ABC News. They don't have much. The National Guardsmen have been shot in downtown near the White House, according to multiple officials. Metro Police Department says it's on the scene of a shooting, 17th and I Street. The scene is secured. 1 suspect is in custody, so there you go. That's good, the Metropolitan Police Department said. Looking at CNN, they have the story there as well. Several people shot in Washington, they say. According to the DHS. Downtown Washington early Wednesday, according to a source familiar with the early reports. Nothing new there. Hang on a second. Let me see what Fox News has. Yeah. Law enforcement responding after 2 National Guardsmen shot near the White House. Authorities are responding to a confirmed shooting near downtown Washington, close to the Farragut Metro Station, within walking distance of the White House on Wednesday. Two sources confirmed to Fox News that 2 National Guard members were shot about a mile from the White House, but their conditions are not known. Please join me, says Kristi Noem in her ex posting, in praying for the 2 National Guardsmen who were just shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. DHS is working with local law enforcement to gather more information. So that is what is breaking right now in the nation's capital. Looking at some of the other reporting on this to see if I can get a little bit more information. White House is aware. The president has been briefed, according to Caroline Leavitt. He is in Mar-a-Lago for the Thanksgiving holiday. J.D. Vance, by the way, interesting. I saw him just a few moments ago on TV. He's here. He's in our neighborhood. He's in at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, feeding the troops before Thanksgiving. And 2 National Guardsmen wounded in a shooting in downtown. 1 suspect is in custody. 17th and I, Northwest. I mean, literally, that's just a stone's throw from the White House. So police are there in a big way. Pictures are coming in. More information will be available to us very shortly. Let me break a little early if I could, because we can maybe get a little information while we're doing our spots here, Belkay. So
Okay.
We'll go to commercial break. I'll try to bring you the latest information, new information as it becomes available right after the spot break. It's 18 past the hour. Thank you, Chad Benson. He will, of course, be monitoring everything that there is about this breaking news development out of the nation's capital, 17th and I, Northwest, just a block or so from the White House, about a half a mile, they say. There was an incident involving 2 National Guardsmen who apparently were involved in a shooting, and 1 suspect. Here's what I'm getting, the latest information, and it's coming. And this is, when things like this happen, it takes a little while to sort of put all your facts together and to double check them. And it's always a very fluid situation. But here's what we do know. A suspect is in custody in the shooting of National Guard members in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, says the Associated Press. 2 Guard soldiers shot near the White House, and their conditions aren't immediately known, according to 2 law enforcement officials not authorized to discuss the matter publicly and who spoke to AP on condition of anonymity. Emergency vehicles seen responding to the area. At least 1 helicopter landed on the National Mall. That would be nearby. The Joint D.C. Task Force confirmed they are responding to an incident in the vicinity of the White House in the movements after reports of a shooting. However, the spokesperson wouldn't immediately confirm or deny if any National Guard members have been shot. Others have. The Metropolitan Police Department said they are responding to a shooting, but did not provide any more information. Spokesperson for Mayor Muriel Bowser said that local leaders were actively monitoring the situation. The mayor was in the city when the incident occurred, but Donald Trump is at Mar-a-Lago, and the vice president is in Fort Campbell, Kentucky at the moment, feeding the troops before Thanksgiving. Hundreds of National Guard members from the district and several states have been patrolling, as you know, the nation's capital after President Donald Trump in August issued an emergency order in the capital, federalizing the local police force and sending in the Guard from 8 states and the District of Columbia. That all from the Associated Press, putting together a little bit of information, putting together what we call string, little facts that we're learning as the story unravels. A suspect from, let's see, that's the AP. Hang on. Yeah, there's it. Here's another one. This one from NewYorkPost.com. 2 National Guard troops shot Wednesday just blocks from the White House. Soldiers were gunned down at Farragut Square in Northwest D.C., less than a half mile from the White House. D.C. Metro Police confirmed the shooting, 17th and I. Suspect in custody. Didn't share how many victims were involved. The scene said to be secure now. And in fact, that is backed up by some of the pictures we're seeing from the scene. But the White House is aware and has been actively monitoring this situation. The president has been briefed, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in a statement. The last time I was in D.C., I was there when some of these troops were there. And I noticed that, they were there, but it wasn't what I would call a showy, how do I want to phrase this? there were a lot of people. They were clear. You could see the troops were there, but at the end of the day, it wasn't an overwhelming presence. They were there. It was subtle. I also can tell you from talking to people who live in the D.C. area that they very much like the fact that the National Guard was called in by Trump. The people who live there, many of them, really like the idea that the city has become safer again because it had really spiraled out of control. It was really getting bad. And the president, anytime he opens up the microphone, in fact, I think he did it yesterday when he was pardoning the turkeys, he was talking about how much it has improved in the District of Columbia and how the city is now safer than it was before. And I believe that to be the case based on what I've heard from people who still live there. However, this incident has occurred this afternoon. Who knows what happened? Who knows what went down? We'll get it. But again, just to recap the very salient points and the very basics of the story that we know as of now, and again, a very fluid situation. About a half mile from the White House, 17th and I Northwest, near the Farragut West Metro Station, right there on the street was some kind of encounter between a couple of National Guardsmen and someone else, and that person, that suspect, apparently was also injured in this encounter and is now at the hospital receiving treatment. One, we don't know really the condition of the National Guard troops, except to say that one of them was receiving CPR at the scene. So that's what we know. We don't know how it all went down. Normally, what would happen in a case like this, you will hear from the police chief of Washington, D.C. in pretty short order once he gets on the ground. The basics are, but since this is a joint effort, you may well get your best information, first of all, from the Department of Homeland Security and the federal government. So we're definitely watching it. Who knows what else is going on? But that one really does not sound good. Again, the president not in town, J.D. Vance, literally in our backyard over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, feeding troops and the run-up to Thanksgiving. So there is all of that. Jay Harper will have the very latest on it coming up in just a few minutes on the newscast, so stay tuned for that. Jay's on it. We're on it. We'll keep you apprised of this breaking news situation. Speaking of Washington, D.C., yesterday, the President of the United States did this. I've been to a lot of these. The little press conference where they pardon the turkeys. Except when Donald Trump pardons the turkeys, he pardons the turkeys from this year and the turkeys from last year. Here is Donald Trump speaking from the White House yesterday during this annual event.
Terrible situation caused by a man named Sleepy Joe Biden. He used an auto pen last year for the turkey's pardon. So I have the official duty to determine, and I have determined that last year's turkey pardons are totally invalid, as are the pardons of about every other person that was pardoned other than, where's Hunter? No, Hunter's was good. That was the one pardon, Pam, that was good, right? The rest of them are all invalid. I don't know what the hell you're going to do about that, but now we're going to take a little of the joking. That is a mess. But they're hereby null and void. The turkeys known as Peach and Blossom last year have been located, and they were on their way to be processed, in other words, to be killed. But I have stopped that journey, and I am officially pardoning them, and they will not be served for Thanksgiving dinner. We saved them in the nick of time. This one has plenty of time, but they were saved in the nick of time.
Yeah, so he took his little shot at Joe Biden and said, his pardon of the turkey wasn't real because he used the auto pen. The fact of the matter is these turkeys end up, as I recall, I've done some stories on it, at a park in Virginia near the White House, not too far from downtown D.C. It's called Frying Pan Park, and they generally are retired and are there in a sort of in a petting zoo situation, so the kiddies can come by and see the turkeys. That's generally is where they go in the past. They do not get eaten. When they are pardoned, they are truly pardoned. So there's that. Time for the news. We do have some breaking news, and I'm sure that Jay Harper is all over it. 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 2 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We got all kinds of stuff happening in the nation's capital. Chad Benson is on. Chad, if you're listening, feel free to jump in anytime you have new information about what's going on in the nation's capital right now. Will you do that for me? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Because, what's happening here is you got a shooting that occurred just about a block or two from the White House, just on the other side of Farragut Square. And it is pretty interesting. The response, National Guardsmen apparently had some kind of encounter. 2 National Guardsmen have been shot. A suspect is at the hospital receiving treatment, apparently also shot. It may have happened inside the metro station, Farragut West. But I'm telling you, the downtown D.C. area right now is just crawling with red and blue lights. You got to understand, in the District of Columbia, in downtown D.C., all God's children got their own police department. I mean, everybody's got their own. Believe it or not, it has to do with separation of powers and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I mean, within the executive branch, everybody's got their own little independent police department. You got your Capitol Police, you got your Metropolitan Police. You got your military police that are there for military operations. You got the Secret Service Uniform Division, which is basically police officers who are responsible for protecting the White House grounds and also, our various diplomatic operations around town. So they are responsible for that. And then, the FBI has a police department. The Justice Department has its own police department. Small, but they're there to provide security for the people who work in those particular federal buildings. They basically, at the end of the day, the town's crawling with police, and when something like this happens, everybody shows up. But we don't know anything more other than we have a situation involving a shooting of some National Guardsmen that were brought in by President Trump to secure the city and to make it safe. Trump is not in town. He's at Mar-a-Lago. Vice President is in our own backyard over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, dishing out turkey and dressing for the troops. And so there nobody is around. Town largely is, a lot of people are out of pocket right now because it's just, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. People are leaving town. So what happened, we don't know, but we're on it. And if you come across anything, just jump right in there, okay?
I got you, Brian.
Okay. In other news, while we have a few minutes, I want to remind you that as you are driving home, if you are driving home, that this is the last day that you can do early voting for the District 7 congressional race. And, soon, very soon, we'll stop seeing all of these commercials, and the battle between Van Epps and Afton Bain will be over. But in the meantime, I just feel like I need to send up a flare because there is some information that came out this morning that suggests that this race might be tight. Now, I think there are mitigating factors to this information, and I'll get into that. But basically, the folks at Emerson College, thehill.com, have done a snap poll on this one race here that we have going on in Tennessee for the 7th congressional, the seat previously held by Mark Green. And what's going on there? What's happening? Could be a 2-point race if the poll is correct. Now, the poll was taken over the last few days, and in the last few days, we've also had a whole bunch of stuff that's sort of come out of the woodwork that Afton Bain has said that could well be hurting her chances in this particular race. The Democrat, Afton Bain, the bane of our existence, has said, among other things, she hates Nashville.
I hate the city. I hate the bachelorettes. I hate the pedal taverns. I hate country music. I hate all of the things that make Nashville, apparently, an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it.
How can you be a representative of this area and get away with saying you hate what the city stands for? First of all, there's that. Then she's just weird. She's just pretty wackadoodle. She's out there. Here's a clip in which she talks about a recurring dream that she's had.
I've had is standing up in a cafeteria full of women. I don't know why I was there or whatever, and saying, I don't want children, I want power, and just screaming it at the top of my lungs.
That's very revealing. She wants power.
And for someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying. And where I am now with seeing the consequences and the ramifications of women having kids.
Well, there you have that. You go back to this part, though, about what her mother said to her.
For someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying.
How bizarre is that? Can you imagine? Think about this for a moment. You're having a conversation with your mother, and your mother says, don't make the mistake I made. Don't have any kids. Then she's basically looking you straight in the eye and saying, I regret that you're here. I mean, come on. Pretty amazing. What kind of psychological trauma is that when, your mom says to you, I wish if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have you. No telling how that messes someone up, but one way or the other, this race, look, I think it's probably not as tight as the polls suggest, but it's the only poll that I can find that's been done on this particular race, and it could be tight. And here's my concern. I'll just go ahead and lay this out here. I think this is the thing that we have to be really, really concerned about. Democrats are motivated in a huge way to vote in this particular election. And although Republicans in this district outweigh Democrats, it all comes down to motivation. How motivated are the Democrats to vote? How motivated are the Republicans? Well, let's just talk about Democrats for a moment. They're angry about everything that Trump is doing. They're not happy. They are motivated. There is an element within the Democrat Party, especially in the far left part of that just loves what Afton Bain is doing, and they're gonna go out and they're gonna support her. And if all of them show up, and not many people on the other side of the equation show up, Bain could win this thing. It could happen. Now, I think that there are some. It probably will be okay, but I'm not sure based on the data that are available. I'm not sure where this thing stands. And I can tell you this, if the Democrats are motivated, and on our side of the equation, we're not that motivated. We're pretty happy right now, maybe not paying attention to the race like we should. Oh, it'll be fine. The Republicans always win, in this particular district. Well, you know what? If all the Democrats vote and the Republicans don't show up, Bain could become the bane of our existence for some time to come. She will be a standing member of Congress. And I just don't think that this is the kind of thing that we want to have happen in our area. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, there's a part of me that says, hey, it'll give you something to talk about. But I think we would be well served to look at Matt Van Epps. Now, I did a what do you call it, a debate among the Republican candidates. I was moderator of a debate. And, afterwards, if you twisted my arm, I wasn't going to say it at the time, but I'll say it now. I thought Matt Van Epps won that debate, and I was very impressed with him. He's a solid individual. He's a man with, great military experience. I forget how many tours of duty that he's done. Helicopter pilot. Very solid, handled himself on the stage very well. He would be a good replacement for Mark Green, and I hope that is the outcome of this particular race. But let me say, if you're within the sound of my voice, and you are a Republican, a conservative, and you haven't voted, and you're eligible to vote for this particular candidate in this particular congressional district, the 7th, and you haven't, why not? Sadly, I'm not eligible to vote in this particular race, but a lot of people are. JustTheNews.com, both political parties ante up seeking big win in Tennessee congressional race. Voters in Tennessee's 7th congressional district are casting ballots to decide who will replace Mark Green in a rare December election marked by millions in donations from political action committees for both sides. Republican ads depict Democrat Afton Bain as a radical disaster with an agenda that Tennessee cannot afford. Bain says her campaign is about affordability, which is not the big issue. The big issue is the economy. And by the way, on the issue of the economy, the poll shows that Republicans list that as their major concern more than Democrats do. Interesting. Republicans are pretty worried they could lose this race or it gets close enough that it continues the narrative that they're on the defensive, so they're pouring resources to try to fight that perception, said Dr. John Gear, a professor of political science at Vandy. Okay. The primary election drew about 67,000 voters, 31,000 Democrats, and 36,000 Republicans. Early voting numbers from the Tennessee Secretary of State's office indicate that just over 63,000 people have cast their ballots. Early voting ends, as I mentioned, today. The district was set up after the 2020 census to favor Republicans. There had been a district in mostly Davidson County that was very blue and elected Jim Cooper countless times, and the state legislature decided to take Jim's seat away from him and create 3 Republican districts as a result, which, by the way, passed constitutional scrutiny. The most interesting story may come after the votes are counting, according to Gear. If Bain wins, it will be a mega story. But even if she loses, the election could send a message to the Republican Party. Let's say Van Epps wins by 8 points. Given that Green won by 20, they will make that will be the narrative going forward. 50 minutes past the hour. Let's call it 55 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. As you know, we've been following this story out of Washington, D.C. 2 National Guardsmen who were there brought in by the president to help make the community safer have been shot. Another suspect is at the hospital, apparently also shot. J.D. Vance, in our own backyard, was aware of it. He's over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, speaking to the troops, and just a moment ago said,
And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those 2 National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America.
So that's J.D. Vance in our own backyard over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky this afternoon. He's talking to the troops as we speak. So he is ready for Thanksgiving. I have a feeling somebody else who's ready for Thanksgiving is the man who will take over at the top of the hour, our good friend, Matt Murphy.
Ryan Wilson. How are you doing, my friend?
And are you ready?
I'm ready to go. I just got pumpkin pie and pecan pie delivered by a good friend of mine, J.K. Brister, and he also brought me a turkey, like a raw turkey. So I get to figure out what I'm going to do with an extra turkey for tomorrow. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, so now let's talk about the most important part of the meal, not the turkey, the dressing.
Yes.
Now, where are you on dressing?
Big fan. Normally we do 2 types. We do just your standard dressing and then the cornbread style dressing. There's 2 different pans there for that because there's different tastes on that. But I'm a huge fan, and it's one of my favorite memories growing up. I every time Thanksgiving rolled around, my grandmother would make up the dressing early in the morning, Brian, and then she would pull out a small little container of the raw dressing and bring it to my grandfather. because he was the official taste tester.
The taste tester, yes. This is very important.
Oh, yeah.
The dressing taste tester.
That's
Go
right.
ahead.
And so she would deliver it to my grandfather, and every year, I can tell you it was the exact same scenario. She would say, Cecil, try this and tell me what it needs. And he would take a bite. He would put it in his mouth. He would swish it around a bit. And he said, needs more sage.
Yeah.
Every single year. And I thought it was the funniest thing when I was a kid. I was like, well, why doesn't Mom just put more sage in it before she gives it to him? Because she knows what he's going to say.
Sage is apparently, I'm the cornbread dressing musher. In other words, you put it in a big pan. Dressing is cooked outside of the bird, not in the bird.
Of course.
And so it's my job to put the cornbread, the biscuits, the croutons, and all the stuff that I put into my dressing, the eggs, and the oil. You put in some onions and some celery and some sage, and then you squish it all up. And my wife, Cabana wife, has been on me about using fresh sage from our garden.
Oh,
so
yes.
Apparently, for her, the sage is also important.
Well, the mushing is a very important part of the process. It's my understanding.
Yeah, you get your hands all mushy, and then you got to wash them off. But, I mean, it's got to be about the consistency before it goes into the oven of thick, lumpy oatmeal.
Yes. I hear you. Are you guys hanging out in, as you would say, bucolic Watertown?
Yeah, I'm going to be in bucolic Watertown, have some family and friends coming over for the big turkey dinner. We are also in the midst of Christmas decorations. So that's,
I saw that on Facebook. The first tree of the season was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there's 15 of them up now. I'm not making this up. All right, what you got coming up in the 3 o'clock hour?
I mean, obviously, we're going to continue covering this tragic story involving the 2 National Guard's members. We'll have the update for you. And early voting has finished in some areas of the 7th Congressional District. We will update on that. And Matt Van Epps will stop by via phone at 4:35 this afternoon. That's all on the way.
All right, big show, all straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson in for Chad Benson. I'll be back here on Monday filling in for Chad, and I hope you'll swing by and join us then. Until then, you and your family have a great holiday weekend.